Good day, everyone. I'm your host, James Hicks from Hicks New Media, and welcome to Perspectives in Focus, where we highlight the people, industries, ideas, and technology that are making positive strides within society. Today, my guest is Christene Marie. She is the CEO and founder of the Knowing Agency, where she and her team guide organizations through self awareness to clarify their brand's overall positioning, helping them to form powerful connections with their target audiences. Christene believes that many of us could benefit from getting to know ourselves a little better, even when we think we know all that there is to know. In fact, we can continue to develop that self awareness throughout our entire lifetime. Today, I want to talk and I want to lean into the subject of how self awareness plays a vital role in authentic branding for organizations and individuals. You got a question, you know what to do, press a Q in it. But coming up next, Christene Marie. Oh, we're in trouble now. Listen, you can't run now. I got you on camera. Ladies and gentlemen, Christene, how are you today?
James, I am doing so well. I already am so thrilled about this conversation. I mean, we were chatting just before you hit record
Yeah,
and live, and I'm already having a blast. So thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Listen, and I appreciate you, and I'm thankful for your team for reaching out because it's a fantastic subject matter and fantastic conversation. But I gave a high level 35,000 foot uh, pitch of who you are, but I always like to have the individual come on, kind of tell their origin story, who they are, what it is they do. But I'd like to switch it up a little bit and have you kind of talk about the context of the rebranding that you've done with your organization and kind of the tenants that you have at the Knowing Company. And listen, I've done my homework, right? So the refining your brand, the defining strategy, and the building on customer loyalty. If you don't mind talking a little bit about that, please.
Absolutely. When I started the company back in 2019, so we actually are just coming up on our 4-year anniversary at the conclusion of this month. I had no intention of starting a full blown marketing agency and ultimately becoming who we are today. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. For anyone who has read that book, it's an incredible catalyst for changing your thinking surrounding money and the way that you optimize your time and spend it as you consider your future. And so I read that book and it really stirred this fire in me that posed the question, why am I working for someone else? And then I just stumbled into a client and went out on my own very kind of spontaneously. And over the following year or two, it really transpired to be something bigger. We ended up becoming a all in-house agency where we did all of the marketing, public relations, communications, everything. It was amazing opportunity to allow for the way that I really felt was most successful, being able to implement that rather than having a boss leaning over my shoulder saying, no, you have to do it our way. Instead, it was taking years of experience and putting it into practice based off of tried and true data. And ultimately, according to my gut, in how we interact with our target audience. This ultimately has led to the rebranding today, which has been refined over the years, where we really emphasize organizations to present themselves in a way that is true to their values, that's true to who they are, their history, their legacy, and then ultimately taking the time to understand their audience so they can meet them with empathy. A lot of marketing agencies, the majority with whom I interact, are very burn and turn. They have a host of clients. They're just kind of running campaigns. They do testing, sure, but it's almost more so a wash and rinse and repeat process rather than taking the time to dig deep and do the work to get to know the client directly, but then also their audience. Because when you're dealing with people, you have to take a different approach than honestly how these conglomerate brands were operating when consumers or parents would kick back and actually consume content. Now the antenna is up in our target audience today, the antenna for manipulation. People want to interact with people. They want to interact with a compelling mission and a compelling story. They need their emotions enacted because of the amount of distraction that is laid before us every single day. And so over the years, we cultivated our skill sets, but then we really ended up honing in on our proprietary knowing process, which is informing the name, the knowing agency, of really having that be the chief and foremost leading factor and differentiator about us from our competitors. Again, it's everybody can execute these marketing tactics, but is it done so with care and consideration of the heart and soul of the company whom we're serving, and then the heart and soul of the audience we're speaking to? So that's kind of some background to the knowing agency and how we got to where we are today.
See, that's some good stuff right there, because you're making statements and you're mentioning words that we typically don't hear, right? From a marketing organization. It's definitely a C-level type of a founder type of conversation that you have, but you're talking about empathy a lot, and that's actually all over your website and all over the verbiage that you use. Talk to me a little bit about why this concept of empathy-driven branding is so important to you, and how you instill that into your company.
Yes. So empathy is something where it's actually it's not just this concept that sounds nice and we all can get warm and fuzzy over. Actually, Harvard Business Review did a study that showed that 95% of the way in which we make decisions is based in our subconscious, which is where our emotions live. So it's actually incredibly important that we learn this, I want to say, skill of empathy, but it goes so much deeper. Over the last 2 years, I've actually learned this art in a very personal way, which has then informed the way in which we do business. So my own ability to extend empathy to myself and in my personal life ultimately extends into the professional, because we're never siloed creatures. We're never existing in our professional, coming home and then donning the hat of mother, father, son, daughter, and then turning and donning the hat of the CEO or founder. Rather, it's very holistic and integrated. So the more, and this is why empathy is so incredibly important to me, is because the more I can adopt this concept and the skill in my own personal life, the more it extends in my ability to see through and understand the heart of someone. And it takes empathy to be able to do that, to actually go and move yourself from your personal position and sit in the seat of whomever you're speaking with and engaging. And so that's why empathy is incredibly important, because you actually imagine you on one side of the bridge, the other person's on the other side. You have to be able to put yourself in their experience. And then that then empowers the marketing strategies, the messaging to be so much more propelled, so that you actually effectively move them closer to you by the words you speak, by the care you exude.
So let me ask this. Where did this conscious thinking come from, right? How did you decide to incorporate this into your business, into your organization, into your everyday patterns? Right? It makes sense. To be honest with you, from me, it makes sense. And selfishly, and I'll admit, I did my Enneagram about 2 hours ago, my new one, because I know you're a fan of the Enneagrams, and it came out the same as I always thought it was, type 3 achiever. So it is what that is. But again, by mixing those two and melding those two from a personal and a professional perspective, and knowing that there is overlap, where did that self-consciousness, self-awareness from you come to actually incorporate that into your business as well? I guess is what I ask.
Yes. So David Brooks authored the book The Second Mountain, and this book references the analogy of two mountains. Most individuals start out existing on the first mountain. They are really aware of themselves. They're aware of themselves in relation to society. So success is actually dictated by what society deems as success. So take the KPIs, key performance indicator that society puts forward and says, by 30 you need to hit this milestone, by 40 you hit this, etc. And then you got to have your spouse, your 2.5 kids, and a dog with a white picket fence. That's success and the American dream, etc. So that's the first mountain, is abiding and living in accordance with how society deems success. And then the second mountain is you actually transcend, in a sense, he doesn't use that word, but it's almost an enlightening of, oh, what is actually stirring within my soul, and how does that contribute, and how can I give to the community? So it's essentially moving from this self-focused, this side of the bridge, and allowing for the moving towards that second side of the bridge, the other piece where you're doing life and living in an accordance for the good of the community. And so I actually grew up and was nurtured on the second mountain. I had a very little concept of self. I grew up with the intent. I grew up in a Christian conservative environment, and so it was very much so. Put God first, put others second, and if you have anything left over, you can give that to other people. And so essentially, I learned almost by existing in this environment, but also where I lined up in my family. I was the fourth child, and I very much so was focused on the well-being and happiness of everyone else, and those were my metrics of success. And over the last 2 years specifically, I had a personal devastation of sorts. I was, just to get personal, because personal and professional are never separated. I got married when I was 20, and my husband ended up leaving 2 years ago, and that just wrecked me. I was incredibly broken as a result of that. And rather than, frankly, I knew that I had a choice. I could either focus on exuding this sorrow and focusing it on someone externally, as an object of, now I have something to blame, or I could hold up the mirror and look at myself and allow the work within and internal work to allow for transformation, and allow this brokenness to catalyze my own process of knowing self. And that process is where this consciousness really illuminated. I've spent a lot of time and hours in therapy, really understanding my own soul. And by way of doing that, it deepened my own understanding of the soul of others around me. So I had spent so much time exuding empathy in my adolescence and into adulthood, but now it's translating that inward as well, so that I actually am empowered to effectively love others better, because I'm powered from this strong, robust position of self, where I'm no longer looking horizontally for others to define success, whether that's society and society's benchmarks of success, or our family's benchmarks of success, even our bosses or CEOs or others in our community, joining masterminds and being engorged in a business community. It's so easy to look horizontally and allow others to inform our own values and form our own definition of success. And so by way of me becoming vertically aligned from that position of brokenness, I've then kind of come forth from the ashes and really now have this robust understanding of self, which is frankly translating into the business world too, because I'm then able to empower other brands to look authentically in and of themselves.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, and I thank you for being transparent with that story. But there's meaning, and there's power in that story, right? It's unfortunate that it happened, but you can actually you've been able to turn that around. Again, I'm gonna be third person looking in, but you've been able to take those incidents that have happened, turn them around, and actually for the better. And you have been able to actually have some clients. Listen, you got a who's who list of clients that Knowing has worked with and is working with. And again, I think by having that empathy, by having that awareness, by having been knocked down and gotten back up, you've been able to actually go into those boardrooms, go into those conversations and those meetings with either the entire business or an individual, a leader or an entrepreneur, and say, I can help you get to this point because I've been underneath the rock as well, and I've gotten out of it. And here are some strategies. Again, I'm third person looking in, but just from hearing your story, it just sounds like, again, you really can come with some well-rounded, tested measures and practices for folks, right?
Right. And James, it was an incredibly unique opportunity. So last summer I was, one of our clients, they were doing a job for Amazon, and we, by way of our partnership, were working with Amazon really closely on one of their events. It was an inaugural event. It was the first time that they ever put something on like this. And we were in charge of the communications. And the thing that was so curious and incredible about this opportunity was that the target audience that we were serving, I didn't look like them. I didn't sound like them. I was very different in terms of just looking at face value. We look,
Yeah.
sound, operate different. And it was absolutely incredible to put myself in their shoes, feel their experience. By way of doing that, I understood an entirely different people group than, I mean, I was one of the only women in this space that looked different than every other person. I was in a room full of 500 people and I stood out. And it
Wow.
was amazing. And the elements that I put forward in terms of writing, the speeches, the content on social media, everything I was able to write by way of being positioned with the empowerment of empathy. And it was a dazzling experience to hear the words that I wrote spoken from stage to a room full of individuals who are so different than me, but empathy connects us and empathy bonds us and empathy allows us to sit in the seat of another and thus experience something similar to then be able to say, wow, I hold so much more regard and respect for you and your experience, even though we could very well be worlds apart. Obviously we were worlds apart in this situation, but it
That's
was just
cool.
amazing to see empathy at work.
That's pretty cool. Now that wouldn't happen to be the time you met Usher, is it? Okay. No, see, listen, I do my homework too. I know these.
I'm so
you,
impressed. I'm actually quite impressed. That was
listen, this is what we do around here. You better Google me. Well, I think you already did, so you already know what's going on.
yeah.
Let me ask this, and from the corporate perspective, and again, I highlighted, so the majority of my audience are, again, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and those within the digital content creation space. So
Right.
folks who are looking to actually take the side hustle more into a business mindset and actually do something and what I call putting a dent in the universe. I didn't make
Mhm.
up that term, but it came from my old boss, Steve Jobs. But put a dent in the universe.
Yeah.
What are we doing good now? What are we doing right? And where do you see kind of some opportunities for individuals and for businesses as well to be more self-aware when it comes to their personal and professional brand?
What a good question. I It really is critical that you're willing to be honest with what you see when you look in the mirror. So the first question is, are you willing to look in the mirror? Are you willing to actually see yourself as you truly are? And that's assessing both the darkness within and the light within. That was something actually that was harder for me to reconcile. It was much easier for me to identify all the areas for growth rather than holding equal balance to the good, the bad, and everything in between. One of the things that I was encouraged to do early on in my journey was to withhold judgment and withhold emotions from what I saw and just allow it to be what it is. And that actually was a really helpful tool. And I still employ it every single day, whether it's interacting with another person or even being a third party watching myself interact in a situation, and just withholding judgment and then taking time to assess why did I react the way that I did, or why did that comment bother me? And so much of what we find being kind of triggered or instigated within has roots in childhood. And so that's one of the biggest things. So looking at yourself in the mirror, being willing to do that, withholding judgment and withholding emotion so you can just see what is. And then also just really leaning into where could this potential element that I identified trace back to the roots. Because until you understand the roots, can you then dig it up and fully analyze it for what it is? And then the fourth thing is replacing it. It's not just
Mm,
enough to dig out because then you're just left with an empty garden. And frankly, if you don't set new targets, you're just going to end up going back. It's going to be a cyclical motion rather than a linear journey. And obviously, it's never perfect. It's never a straight line. But
right.
right now, progressing forward, you're eventually going to go back because that's so deeply embedded. Whether it's a default mindset, whether it's a pattern that was exemplified for you, until you set a new target, can you then reach new goals and change behaviors? You have to identify it and then set new targets in order to really be able to do that work.
So of those measures, of those practices, which one is the hardest? Which one do you have to beat into people's head most often? They'll hear it, they'll nod and say, "Yeah, you know what, man, Christine's making so much sense." However, right? However, we get complacent, we get in our ways. We've done it the same way for X number of years, but again, you're drawing it on the board, and you saying, "Listen, we trying to grow from here to here, trying to go from 1 million to 10 million. This is what we need to do."
Yeah.
Which is the hardest hurdle, hardest opportunity, hardest challenge? I don't want to call it problems, but for you to, again, knock into somebody's head and say, we got to do this if you want to get to that next level of growth?
Really tracing the roots. It's a
Wow.
lot easier to set the intention. It's really
Mm,
easy to identify, oh, I hate that I reacted that way. It's, you can even learn to withhold judgment, but being willing, because it is deep work. It is work
yeah.
to actually trace the roots back and ask why. Why is my favorite question of my own self. And you think of kids. Kids are always asking why. It empowers curiosity. It empowers learning. It empowers growth in exponential levels. Why do we have to, stop this growing that we see in children? They grow so fast and
Yeah.
such an expansive, holistic way because of why. And so if we as adults are unwilling to ask why, that not only stunts our emotional health and emotional growth, but also professional learning. It's actually quite vulnerable to create. And so if we're unwilling to extend vulnerability with our own selves, if our own self is not safe for us to sit with and process anything that could be holding us back, why would we ever assume that we'll then be safe to iterate and ideate upon something with
Mm.
someone whose opinion, frankly, we really value?
Man, I'm just gonna let that marinate right there, because that was pretty good. I like that. One of the coolest lines that I saw written about you. Yeah, I think you
Mm.
wrote it, but real short. And I guess I want to get your ideas and where did this come from? Being an emotional intelligence advocate.
Mm.
I've
Mm.
never heard of that in someone's byline. I've never heard of that in someone's bio. I've never heard of that in someone's description of themselves. But I call myself an engineering technologist, right? Driven by passion and focused on purpose.
I,
That's me at the end of my statement, right? You can't take that. No, this.
James, can you say that one more time? Because that deserves a second mention.
An engineering technologist driven by purpose and focused on passion.
Focused on passion.
Yeah.
That is incredibly beautiful. It's so easy to get stuck in a grind. It's so easy to act without regard. And it's so good. Focus on
Thank you.
passion.
Thank you. No, don't try to throw me off here. I still want to know about you here, and an emotional intelligence advocate. Talk to us a little bit about that, because again, I've never heard that mentioned by someone as themselves when they get on stage and start saying, introducing themselves. When Christene Marie gets up and says, "That's who I am." Talk to me a little bit about that and why that resonates with you.
So, emotional intelligence, there's two parts to the definition. The first part is the ability to understand, control, and express one's own emotions. But then the second
Mm.
piece is the ability to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and with empathy. So, with wisdom and with empathy. It's an incredible ability. We place so much on the IQ and not enough on the EQ, but the EQ is truly, if you think about it, what makes the world go round. Someone
Wow.
can
Yes.
brilliant ideas, but if they don't have the ability to express it, control the expression of it, understand the expression of it, and then be able to handle the person who's receiving that information, handle that with wisdom and with empathy, it's just what's the purpose? What's the benefit? What talk about with passion and purpose? You have to be able to have that purpose, which is the IQ, and then the EQ is the passion and the expression thereof. And I would even say I've gotten so much more clear on my vision and my calling for life the more I've gotten to know myself.
Okay.
Eliminating horizontal voices around and understanding what I feel called to in vertical alignment with my own self and the divine,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding this is what I was created to do. Again, it's eliminating the distracting voices. It's the ability to then walk in that and prioritize that while handling relationships with other people in a way that, frankly, is not only loving and kind to them, but people come around you. People come around your vision, and that is true leadership. The ability to understand and express and control, and then rally those around you in something bigger and brighter for yourself. The reason why I'm an advocate for this is because we see all of these broken adults around
Yeah.
us. And then we see kids who are in these very volatile time in their life where it's so formative. And then we've got broken adults influencing these children. And so I don't think it's ever possible for there to be a completely untraumatic childhood in any regard and for it to be bliss. But the more that we can learn this art form of emotional intelligence, the more we then raise a generation behind us of people who are healthy, not having to go to therapy at 30 years old because they're so incredibly broken. And then at 50 years old, then they're finally recognizing what they're passionate about. Rather, why don't we start that at 18 years old when you first make your decision about where you're going to be investing your life? We're raising generations of children who have such little responsibility and such little awareness of self. And you need both, right? The responsibility and the awareness. It's not one or the other. And so being able to have both of those juxtaposed, and then it forces this awareness of self, so then you're much more guided in the way you make decisions. So it's for the generations behind us that I'm so passionate about emotional intelligence. And even my own mom, a lot of the behaviors that I've been analyzing and recognizing in myself are a mirror of who she is, because she was my example. And so by way of my own journey, she's now on her journey to explore her child, understand what she's called to. I'm one of 6 kids. And so when all of us left the house, she was sitting around looking at, what is my purpose in life now?
Yeah.
They were everything to me. So it's for the purpose of 6-year-olds and 60-year-olds that I advocate for emotional intelligence.
So we've been talking for 30, 40 minutes already, right? And you notice I haven't asked you to draw anything on the whiteboard. I haven't asked you to go in deep detail about necessarily the knowing agency. And the conversation has been on you, what makes up you, who is Christene Marie. And I think by me consciously doing this, so it kind of sets you up, but it's in a good thing to have this conversation about who the person is that's behind the organization and who the individuals and who the businesses are working with when they go and work with you and your team. Because again, hearing that origin story, hearing that why, the passion, the drive, the understanding of your personality and self-awareness, I mean, that raises more credibility than any resume or any LinkedIn bio that anyone else can have, right? So I wanted to put that out there just so you're aware of, is he going to ask me some questions about the company? About it? We kind of are, right? But
Right.
this matters and this resonates because again, this helps folks understand this is the mindset of the individual and the person or the company that I'll be working with for folks that are coming to the knowing agency. I don't need a finder's fee for folks that I send to you, but we can talk about that offline as well. But again, thank you for that information, though.
Well, and James, thank you for asking. And I'm glad you said what you just did, because this entire conversation, this is what people are looking for when they're coming to consider working with you as a business owner.
Exactly.
They go and look at your social media profiles. They go and look at the content you're producing. They look at your values. Everything that you just pointed out is exactly what people want to buy. They need to connect with a person. Again, we're moving from big conglomerate brands to person-to-person marketing. Hence why empathy is so important, and hence why it's so critical, especially for solopreneurs, especially for entrepreneurs, for individuals who have their own business, to take the time to understand who they are so they can come forward authentically, because that's who the consumer is buying from. They're buying from people.
Exactly. So let me ask you this, and then I'll get into some questions here. I see folks chiming in. Good to see you, Mr. Worthy, in the comments there. The world is hot right now with AI. With generative AI, and it could be a blessing, it could be a curse, it should be a tool. But I would love to hear your rationale and your thinking about, again, when it comes to personal and professional branding and putting your digital presence out there across the globe. How are you advising your clients on using generative AI for some of that messaging?
Yes. So I was just talking about this in Austin a couple weeks ago, and someone asked specifically about the content itself. So we use a number of tools when it comes to repurposing content, such as we were talking about this earlier, Opus Clip. It's opus.pro. I think that's the.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
It's an incredibly powerful tool when it comes to any type of video content you may have, putting that link in Opus, and it automatically spits out 20 variations of that clip. It uses, machine learning to actually go through and understand this content is going to be most relevant. It's going to be most intriguing, most interesting. It pops out different title and headline variations. But then my favorite part is it actually includes all the captions. So that's a tool that we employ very often. And really it's a time saver. That's something that's incredibly robust in producing. It's taking evergreen content and then allowing it to 10x, 30x, etc. The life of that content.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely love that piece, or that tool rather. But as it comes to content, I am a little bit at war with myself when it comes to content and using AI, because I care so much about what I put forward. It has to align with my values. It has to align with my voice. But what we do is we do train different tools the voice of our clients. So we specifically use Jasper AI for website content. Again, it's on kind of behalf of the organization, but what we do is we create our own piece of content as the first example, and then we'll put it in there and then have that serve as the prompt so that they understand the voice. We guide them on the direction of the content. And I will say that the quality of the prompt has direct implications on the quality of the output. And
say that one more time, because we gonna make sure that folks say that one more time about the quality of the prompt. That's really good.
Yeah, the quality of the prompt into any content creative AI tool has direct proportion and impact on the quality of the output. So it's incredibly important that you train the tool how to sound like you. Again, you have to know your brand to then you have to know your brand to then train the AI tool in how to create content that sounds and looks like you. And so if you don't know yourself, you surely cannot use some of these AI tools when it comes to content creation, because it's just not going. Yeah, it's not going to align. And so quality of the output, quality of the input, rather, to inform the quality of the output, knowing what your goals are, right? So I've actually never used an AI tool for my content because of my goals and what I'm trying to achieve in my personal brand. But there are some clients where it's actually really, really helpful to create lists. They just need to be present. They need to be continuously interacting with their audience. You can really serve through automated content creation using these AI tools. And so I'm not opposed to it by any means, but it really depends on what your bottom line goals are. So again, you need to know your brand, who you authentically are, to then train the inputs. And then you also need to know your bottom line goals to ensure that you're using the right tools to propel those goals forward.
Right back to the title, self-awareness. You said you have to know who you are, and you have to know who your brand is. I love that. You see where I brought it back there. It's a method to the madness. I look crazy, but I'm not 100% crazy. That's exactly what I was looking. So I appreciate you for that right there. I feel similar, right? Right. Again, utilizing maybe as a framework, maybe as a jumping off point, as a way of helping curate content, but then adding in your own personality, adding in your own ad libs, making it sound like you, as opposed to doing the John Morant and using ChatGPT to write your apology to the NBA. That's what he did, and we won't mess with him too much. Let me ask this: what's going on now with Knowing Agency in terms of evolution and growth, and has there been, I guess, changes within the business model and the business structure since the planet opened back up? I always tend to use that as kind of a marker, right? Especially for business and things of that nature, because so much change, everything changed. And then have you, in terms of direction, in terms of strategy, in terms of clients that you're looking to engage with, has the Knowing Agency actually changed, kind of done any pivoting or anything besides just rebranding, or what's happening next for you and your organization?
Yes, so we actually did pivot quite significantly. We started out evolving into an organization that really had everything in house. And so what we've done is we have altered our approach to really focus on two key deliverables. One, fractional CMO. So we'll come in and we will manage every single part of the marketing strategy. Actually, this is where the second piece really comes into play. So that empathy-driven approach is absolutely paramount as the foundation. But then in terms of executing, in terms of actually understanding the impact of your work, that's where measurement marketing comes in. And that's really where I am equally passionate. So long as what we're putting forward is backed by empathy. The ability to measure and track and thus indicate the value of our work and our activations is incredibly contingent on the way in which we measure, the way in which we track, the way in which we report. And so without understanding, again, your benchmarks, without understanding what your goals are and what constitutes success for your organization, you're not going to be able to track whether you're on the right track or out of alignment. And so what we've really done is we really focus on understanding first what is the bottom line goals of the organization, and then understanding where are you currently present and active in a marketing sense, and does it actually align with your bottom line goals, and does it meet your audience where they are? Because we've found that a lot of organizations do not fully understand their target audience. Again, this does harken back to the empathy piece in terms of being able to understand emotionally your audience, but understanding too, doing your homework, where do they spend their time? Because investing dollars and cents into Facebook, into LinkedIn, into TikTok, they're not created equal, because the audience interacts very differently across each platform, and the audience itself is very different on each platform. And so understanding your audience, but then also the customer journey. So think of it kind of in a funnel, if you will, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. And I include customer loyalty in there because that's kind of the bottom of the funnel, the bottom of the bottom, where nobody thinks much beyond conversion. But if your customer can become your advocate, that's the best marketing dollars you can ever spend. And so what we do is we align our marketing activations based on our understanding of the audience, based on our understanding of the brand, and then we align which activations fall on which part of the customer funnel, and then identify what are the KPIs that measure success, and then we go to work. And we now usually will do some of the partnership with vendors, who are either local to the organization, the team, the marketing team itself, who's a part of the organization, will work closely with them. But I have kind of cut off some of our arms a little bit in terms of some of our product offerings and services, so that we can be very, very focused on this process. And I mean, I've got some other projects in the works as well. Just really being able to focus in on our knowing process and empowering executives and other organizations to bring that internally, specifically on a solopreneur and personal brand for executives on that basis as well, because every single person needs to understand how they present themselves authentically in order to reach their goals.
I love that. I love that. So don't try to boil the ocean, folks, because audiences and reaction and expectations are different from each platform and things of that nature. I'm going to dive into a little bit. You said something about you got other things going on. We're going to give you some flowers here, right? So let's talk about the book. Come on now. When we going to get the book here? What is this? Winter 2023.
Yes. Yep, that's the goal. It might end up being Q1 of next year, but I actually just delivered it to my editor on Friday.
Nice.
We're finding a few things stylistically, but I am incredibly excited about this. This is actually chronicling my journey through brokenness, harkened earlier at the beginning of our conversation. And it's really our process that we take on a business sense, know yourself, know your audience, etc. But this is much more in a personal perspective. So it's really my journey, so that hopefully others can come along with me and do their own journeys. So, I break it down into 3 key processes. You have to know who you were. That lends to the digging of the roots and examining what was the precursor to then the second piece of this, which is who am I today? So who was I? Who am I? And then who do I want to be? We all have big visions, big dreams, big goals, but without going through that process, you're just going to be striving and striving. And frankly, if you don't dig those roots out and replace them with new targets based on who you want to be, that's where you actually do move forward rather than repeating old habits and old patterns out of a kind of a default manner rather than living with intention. And so I go through, by way of knowing myself, I understood, wow, I've got 12 values. And I list them out, and I actually have exercises at the conclusion of each chapter. It's kind of an interactive book. It really is. I'm very honest about my journey, but then also really encourage other people to take theirs with me through that book. And so there are exercises throughout. I even include some QR codes to playlists that I listen to throughout the time. And my sister actually is doing some graphic work, and we're going to be including some of that as well. So, yeah, it's an experiential book because frankly, knowing self is one hell of an experience.
I can attest to that as well. And I will definitely put a link in the description to your website where folks can get on the wait list. I'm going to be on the wait list, and I'm going to hopefully maybe I can talk to someone, the author or something. I can get a signed copy. Well, all right. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to leave that.
Appreciate that.
Steve Worthy is saying, I like this. He says, absolutely, referral or sharing of your content is one great measurement for success. So yeah, and he's very affluent and very active also in the content creation ecosystem in the retail leadership perspective and the consulting side. So he can attest to a lot of the things that we're talking about here today.
I love that. And one thing too, Steve, just kind of in alignment with your comment regarding the very bottom of the funnel, focusing on customer loyalty and actually procuring those referrals. I got I believe it was $150,000 client by sending out one holiday gift it was a one time, I sent out holiday gifts to about 20 people. I got a $150,000 client as a result. And so really taking the time to nurture the very bottom of the funnel, and then also nurture individuals who are in your network, because you never know who is in the wings waiting to do business with you. And you just frankly have to kind of reintroduce yourself, and the personal touch point of gifts, the personal touch point of notes and handwritten of cards, each one of the moments that you take for personal intention to be expressed, it makes lasting memory. And a strong brand sets the expectation for the feeling that is going to be conjured upon interaction. And so by way of us taking the time and the intention to form those personal relationships and personal connections, that sets the expectation for, frankly, what they will experience in working with you. And so I just wanted to highlight the benefit of taking time to consider gifts and including that as a part of your strategy, because it doesn't have to be expensive, but it has to be thoughtful.
All right. So how much time you got? We can sit here and keep talking for a little while. We may have to do another session, because I really can get down with that, especially I liken that almost to my use of words as well. You notice I've been talking about specific words and phrases like that you've been using. So I don't like the word influencer. I like the word, and I refer to myself more as an advocate. Right. So being able to advocate for one's growth, one's success, one's achievements and things like that, as opposed to saying that I'm an influencer. I don't like that.
Yes.
And then a friend of mine just got back from an overseas trip. He sent me a letter and a gift, a handwritten letter. And I literally called him and I said, dude, you have no idea how cool. I covered for him on one of his podcasts. So as a gift, he got me a gift, and he wrote a handwritten letter. And I said, that piece right there, right? You didn't have to do it, but just the handwritten note from you saying thank you really touched and resonated and really elevated our friendship to a whole different level as well. Wow. Just by taking the time to be, back to the subject here, self-aware,
yes,
self-conscious, and knowing who you are, knowing that it's of you to go out and rise above the noise and do something a little bit extra to show your appreciation. So
absolutely.
Yeah, you good folks. You now been added to the insider, the inner circle list right here. We gonna talk some more for sure, ladies and gentlemen.
And James, I heard this example from another speaker at an event, and I loved what they did. So during COVID, they were unable to have that person-to-person interaction in their storefront. And so what they did was they mailed out sushi socks that looked like sushi to everyone within a certain mile radius. And they had people calling and just saying like, that was hilarious. Thank you so much. And then, of course, that opens the door for conversations to be had, right?
Yeah.
And so whether it's just solidifying brand awareness or actually for the purpose of customer procurement, there's so much opportunity to use gifts in any part of the customer funnel. So I love that. And to your point about the handwritten letter, we can't do that for everybody within 25 miles, but it's a beautiful thing when you identify these are people that matter to me, and I'm going to take the time and the intention to let them know just how much.
That's it. Listen, if you want to send me a bottle of scotch,
No,
we have no problems with the scotch as well. We were talking about drinking before the show. Okay, I should stop. What's that?
I want to know your favorite brand.
Oban. I'm an Oban and a Macallan fan. I got yes, so we can get down with that at any time.
Just made a note.
I had to see that was an 18 back there. I had to zoom in. That's an 18-year-old Oban right behind me.
I literally opened my notes so I could write down your two favorite Scotch brands. Do you have a bottle behind you? 18 years? That's amazing.
No, see, I'm not going to show it online here because folks can. No, we got. Don't come around here looking for. Don't do it. Don't. I got more than Ring cameras. All right. So yeah, I'm just going to put it that way. Listen, this is good stuff. Let me ask this, I guess, in closing, because again, I want to be cognizant of your time, and but definitely want to reach out and talk further about some other things, because I think we're really having a great conversation that can pivot off into some other aspects and some other areas, especially when the book comes out. Mm-hmm. But I guess, what are some key best practices, some key takeaways that you can give folks to raise their level of self-awareness when it comes to, again, their personal brand and their professional branding as well, and how that intersection happens? So some key best practices that you can leave with some individuals.
Yes. Understand your values, because understanding your values will eventually guide business decisions. Southwest is a great example of this. They decided back in 2008 or 2009 to not charge for bags when all of their competitors were. They stood to lose $500 million in 1 year alone. And by way of their business decision, while they stood this risk, but it was based in their values, they essentially attracted a whole tribe of new customers. And so being able to really understand your personal and your professional values, there likely will be disparities between the two, and then there will be overlap, guaranteed, but it will inform you and guide you in the way not only you live your personal life, but in the way you make your business decisions as well. I have fired a couple of clients who were not in alignment with my value of emotional intelligence, but by way of clearing my plate and pipeline, it then made the way and made the room for much more ideal and value-aligned clients to come on board. So I would say that's number one, really making sure that you know your values and you understand what is the key driver to then inform business decisions. And then a second thing I want to say too is don't shy away from how the world is changing as it pertains to AI. Really lean in and understand just what's going on. Just listen to podcasts. It doesn't have to be anything super intense. It doesn't need to be overwhelming, but understand the conversation so that whenever the right tool comes your way, you at least can proceed with caution, but proceed and see if it's a good fit for you. The last thing I will say is use executive assistants, get support, because the employment of someone who can come alongside you in your leadership, who can take some time off of your plate, frankly, affords the opportunity and the time to take the awareness and the knowing process that will cultivate your soul.
I like how you used your title right there, the knowing process, right? Huh? That was on purpose, wasn't it? That was a purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Christene Marie right there. CEO, founder, Knowing Agency. Very forthright in story, very personable about history and why it is that she and her team does what it is that they do. Again, I will leave links in the description to everything, all things Christene Marie and all things Knowing Agency. I appreciate you for your time. I appreciate you for what you do and what you stand for, right? Because I can feel that you mean what you say and you're doing what you're doing out of purpose and out of passion, because you've made those statements a number of times already during our conversation. So that is commendable. And again, I want to give you those flowers for that.
Thank you, James. And thank you for your example of the same. Truly understanding, not only understanding what makes you passionate and understanding your purpose, but then living accordingly.
That's good. Folks, listen, if you found some value, let me know. If you did not find value, tell Christene, don't tell me. But no, this will be out there. So I look forward to having some more conversations with you as well. And folks, have a blessed day, and I will talk to you all soon. Be well.